Title: Demigods and Semi-Devils. Chapter 1. Fate's Three Threads. In the northern reaches of the Central Plains, where the snow never melted from the mountain peaks and the rivers whispered of old wars, 3 children were born under the same sky, in the same hour, beneath a rare triple eclipse. The astrologers at the Imperial Observatory trembled when the stars aligned, an omen of great upheaval, a time when heaven's mandate would fracture and destiny would spin 3 different ways. The first child, Shen Lian, was born in the monastery of Tianyun Temple, wrapped in crimson cloth and left at the gate. Raised by monks who taught serenity, compassion, and the Eightfold Sword Sutra, he grew into a quiet youth, thoughtful and disciplined. Yet within him burned questions. Who were his parents? Why did his dreams often lead him to snow-covered battlefields and the clash of steel? The abbot said, "You were born under the shadow of the heavens divide. To know your fate, you must walk into it." The second child, Wu Jin, was born amidst fire and ash. His clan's valley was razed by imperial decree, accused of harboring traitors. As his mother bled out clutching him, the infant was taken by the Bloodsaber Elder, a fugitive grandmaster who wandered the dark paths of the martial world. Wu Jin was raised in exile, trained in the violent arts, forbidden sword styles, and taught that mercy was weakness. As he grew older, his hatred sharpened. He vowed to one day return and carve justice with his blade. The third child, Yue Xinyi, was born in the opulent palace of the Southern Rain sect, the daughter of sect leader Yue Minghao. From a young age, she showed extraordinary talent in inner energy cultivation and the sect's legendary art, Rainfall Blossom Palm. Yet the life of privilege chafed at her. She would sneak out of the palace, disguised as a wandering poet, and spar with beggars and sword dancers. Her spirit longed for the world beyond the walls. These 3 would remain unaware of each other for years. But the martial world began to stir. Strange signs appeared: lakes boiling at dawn, swords singing at midnight, and tombs breaking open. At Tianyun Temple, Shen Lian discovered a hidden scroll written in blood, speaking of a sword technique older than the dynasties. In the wastelands, Wu Jin encountered a masked assassin who named him the last son of Shui. And in the capital, Yue Xinyi's father received a letter sealed in black wax. "The heavens have split. Your daughter shall be tested." Unseen forces moved, sects began to gather, and old enemies awoke from slumber. The 3 threads had begun their slow, fateful braid. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Wind Valley. The Wind Valley stretched across the northwestern borders of the empire, a desolate and windswept land flanked by steep cliffs and narrow ravines, where the howling gales carved tails into the rocks. Locals said the spirits of forgotten warriors roamed the valley, whispering ancient truths to those brave or foolish enough to listen. To Duan Ming, it was both a path forward and a haunting echo of the chaos that stirred within him. Days had passed since the incident at the Lotus Monastery, and Ming traveled alone. He had not told anyone where he was going, not even his adoptive uncle, Master Liu. In his palm, he still bore the mark of the crimson seal that had appeared after his confrontation with the masked assassin, a strange, dragon-like glyph that burned cold whenever he meditated. He reached the valley just as twilight began to bleed across the sky. The wind screamed between the stone crevices like 1,000 weeping voices. Ming wrapped his cloak tighter and ventured down the narrow trail leading into the gorge. The path was treacherous, but his footing remained sure. It was not the terrain he feared, it was the dream. Every night since the monastery attack, Ming dreamt of a lake of silver fire and voices, familiar and distant, calling his name. One voice stood out, gentle, feminine, and sorrowful. "You must remember, Ming. Remember who you were." At the valley's heart stood a forgotten shrine, half buried by time and debris. Its dragon carvings were faded, but the aura it exuded was undeniable. Ming felt the mark on his palm stir. A shadow moved behind him. He turned swiftly, blade drawn. A young woman stepped from the darkness, no older than himself, clad in green robes stitched with patterns of clouds and cranes. Her eyes, silver like moonlight, regarded him not with fear, but curiosity. "You bear the mark of the twin roots," she said. "You are one of the three divided." Ming frowned. "Who are you?" She stepped closer, bowing respectfully. "Lin Caixia of the Spirit Wind Pavilion. I was sent to find the one marked by fate." Before Ming could reply, the ground shook. Out of the ravine walls burst a monstrous beast, scaled like a dragon but headless, its body bound by chains of cursed iron. Caixia cried, "The guardian of the veil! Someone unleashed it!" Together they fought. Ming's swordplay danced like falling leaves, while Caixia summoned wind blades with her fan. But the creature was relentless. In a final desperate gambit, Ming plunged his palm, mark and all, into the beast's chest. The seal flared, and with a terrible cry the creature shattered into dust. Caixia stared at him in awe. "You are not ready, but the heavens have chosen regardless." Ming, exhausted, fell to one knee. "Then let the heavens explain why." Chapter 3. The Mirror of 10,000 Reflections. The storm that swept through Wind Valley left behind more than silence. It left questions. Duan Ming awoke beneath the shrine, wrapped in a blanket of fallen leaves and shadow. Lin Caixia sat nearby, meditating, the faint hum of her internal ki rippling through the air like a calm breeze. Her fan rested across her knees, its tassels fluttering without wind. "You shouldn't have survived that," she murmured without opening her eyes. "The mark consumed the beast, and it nearly consumed you." Ming sat up slowly. The dragon glyph on his palm had dimmed, though a faint glow remained under the skin. He felt different. Stronger, perhaps, but also distant from his own thoughts, as though another self whispered behind his mind. "You said I am one of the three divided. What does that mean?" Caixia opened her eyes. "Long ago, when the Jade Empire was still unified under the Sky Throne, three guardians held the balance of the world, the root, the blade, and the eye. But ambition fractured the Trinity, scattering them across time and bloodlines. The mark of the twin roots means you're a vessel of that lost balance." Ming rose, brushing dust from his robe. "So there are others like me?" Caixia nodded. "The blade is said to sleep beneath the sea of whispering sand. The eye hides in plain sight, among the 9 noble clans. If we are to mend what was broken, you must find them." The journey took them eastward across the azure plains. Along the way, Ming witnessed villages suffering under corrupt lords, remnants of the crumbling empire grasping at power. Each injustice stirred something deep within him, memories not his own. He knew the names of places he'd never visited, recalled battle forms he had never practiced. Caixia noticed. "The seal isn't just power, it's memory," she said one night, as they made camp beneath a twisted cedar. "You are becoming someone else." "Or remembering who I was," Ming replied. Their path led to the Temple of 10,000 Reflections, a sacred site abandoned for centuries. It was said that the mirror within showed not your face, but your truest self. Ming stepped inside alone. The chamber was vast and filled with ancient runes. At its center stood a single bronze mirror. When he looked, he saw not himself, but 3 figures: a warrior with a flaming sword, a scholar wrapped in wind, and a shadow crowned in stars. All bore his face. A voice echoed through the chamber. "Only one path unites the 3, but to walk it, you must die and rise anew." Behind him, Caixia waited. "What did you see?" "The truth, and a choice I am not yet ready to make." Chapter 4. The Court of Fallen Echoes. The journey east took Duan Ming and Lin Caixia beyond the jagged cliffs of Wind Valley into the painted forests of Yang and Prefecture. Autumn had kissed the land, setting the leaves aflame in reds and golds. But peace was fleeting. Word of the battle in the ravine spread faster than fire, and unseen eyes watched their every step. Caixia explained the truth as they traveled. The 3 divided, were the bearers of celestial seals split from the heaven's mandate, once used to balance the power of the mortal, demon, and immortal realms. That balance had been broken centuries ago, the seals scattered across time and bloodlines. "The seal on your palm," she said, "responds to chaos. It will lead us to the others, but it will also draw them to us." In Yong'an, they found refuge in a hidden enclave beneath an abandoned bell tower, home to Caixia's informants from the Spirit Wind Pavilion. There, they encountered Zhu Yan, a one-eyed strategist and former court scribe turned exile. He knew of the Court of Fallen Echoes, a ruined palace said to be haunted, but rumored to hold one of the divided. "Only a fool enters echoes," Zhu Yan warned, swirling his wine. "Or someone desperate enough to wake the ghosts of emperors." Duan Ming didn't hesitate. "Then it's where I must go." The court lay within the bones of a sunken mountain, shrouded in mist and songless birds. The walls were lined with statues of forgotten kings, their faces cracked and eyes hollow. Every step echoed with whispers that weren't theirs. Caixia stayed close, her fan ready, while Zhu Yan reluctantly followed, grumbling about bad omens and cursed ancestors. In the palace's heart, they found an ancient altar with 3 indentations, one of them glowing faintly. Ming approached, and the mark on his palm pulsed. Visions struck him. A kingdom swallowed by war. A boy crowned too young, betrayal by his closest friend. Blood staining the throne. And in the midst of it, a golden saber shaped like twin dragons, calling his name. He collapsed. Caixia caught him. "Another seal has awakened," she whispered. "You saw the past bearer's fate." Ming opened his eyes, older somehow. "He died alone. I won't repeat his end." But the court rumbled, statues crumbling as wraiths rose from the cracks, shadows of fallen emperors demanding judgment. Zhu Yan shouted, "Time to run!" Ming stood firm, blade drawn. "No. This time, we fight." Together, the trio faced the ghosts. Caixia's winds clashed with regal specters. Zhu Yan laid cunning traps from his hidden scrolls. Ming dueled a phantom king, his strikes channeling the new seal's power. By dawn, silence returned. The court lay in ruins, again. But the second seal had chosen. Caixia turned to Ming, awe in her voice. "You're changing." He nodded quietly. "So is the world." Chapter 5. Threads of Heaven, Roots of Earth. The dense forests east of the imperial capital whispered with life, but underneath their green canopy hid secrets buried for centuries. Duan Ming followed Lin Caixia along the winding path through these woods, both guided and protected by her silent familiarity with the terrain. She moved like a breeze between trees, as if the forest knew her footsteps and welcomed her passing. Ming, despite his growing skills, still felt like an intruder in a world far older and more patient than any empire. Their journey had taken them from the Wind Valley into the verdant provinces, a region Caixia said was once home to the Rooted Temple, a sect destroyed during the last Heavenly Reckoning War. According to her, the next piece of Ming's truth lay within its ruins. Ming had barely recovered from the battle with the chained beast, and his body still ached with the memory of invoking the seal's power. Yet each night as they camped under stars half-veiled in mist, he trained. Caixia watched him with quiet approval, occasionally offering cryptic corrections. "You move like someone fighting shadows," she said once, "but your real enemy is within." As they approached a clearing where great stones jutted from the earth like broken fingers, Caixia stopped. "Here, this is where the Rooted Temple fell." The ruins were quiet, save for a distant echo that was not quite wind. Ming stepped closer and placed his hand upon one of the moss-covered stones. The mark on his palm pulsed faintly. "Someone's been here recently," Caixia murmured. She crouched beside an overturned urn and examined the soil. Boot prints, deep, heavy. They weren't alone. A whistle pierced the air, sharp and sudden. From the trees above, masked figures leapt down, clad in black and gray, each wielding hooked blades. Ming and Caixia reacted instantly. Steel met steel in a clash that disturbed the sacred silence of the temple ruins. Ming found his rhythm, his movements no longer hesitant. These assassins moved like the one at Lotus Monastery. Same style, same silence. In the midst of the battle, a voice boomed from the tree line. "Stand down, or the girl dies." Caixia gasped. Another masked figure held a blade to her throat. Ming froze, blade still raised. The lead attacker stepped forward, his mask etched with golden lines. "Duan Ming, surrender the seal and we might let her live." Ming glanced at Caixia. She gave the faintest shake of her head. He stepped forward, raising his marked palm. "You want it? Come take it." The mark blazed. The earth itself shuddered. Roots burst from the ground, ancient and glowing, wrapping around the attackers. Ming's eyes burned silver. Caixia cried out in warning, but it was too late. The power of the rooted temple had awakened. Chapter 6. Songs Beneath the Stone Sky. The Sacred Plateau of Yuntai rose like a forgotten throne above the clouds. Its slopes were carved by time and battle, and legend claimed that those who scaled its 9 peaks would hear the voices of the heavens themselves. Few dared to test the claim, but Duan Ming had no choice. Answers lay at the summit, and Lin Caixia believed the path forward began there. It had been weeks since their battle in Wind Valley. Caixia's presence had grown from ally to something deeper, though neither dared speak of it. In their moments of rest, she sang old spirit pavilion lullabies under the stars, songs of distant plains and ancestors lost to war. Ming often listened in silence, afraid that speaking would break whatever spell those songs carried. At the base of Yuntai they found ruins, a circle of standing stones inscribed with runes older than any dynasty. Caixia read them aloud, her voice trembling. "When stone remembers, flesh forgets. But when hearts remember, heavens forgive." They weren't alone. From the mist emerged 3 figures clad in black. Their faces were veiled, but their blades were familiar. Members of the Crimson Order, sworn enemies of the Spirit Pavilion, and ancient enemies of Ming's bloodline. Caixia gasped. "The Order of the Crimson Root. They've come for the seal." Ming stepped forward. "Then let them try." The battle under the stone sky was as swift as it was brutal. Caixia's fan summoned a storm of petals that slashed like knives, while Ming's blade burned with silvery fire. But something changed mid-battle. One of the enemies called him by a forgotten name, Ji Wusheng, traitor to your clan. A tremor of memory surged through him, visions of a boy in chains, of a tower burning, of a vow made in blood. When he struck down the last of them, he did not celebrate. He collapsed, gripped by a past not his own. Caixia held him. "What is it? What did they mean?" He opened his palm. The mark had changed. 2 roots twined into one, pulsing faintly. "I think I was someone else, before I became Duan Ming." That night, beneath the stone sky, the heavens whispered secrets through the wind. Caixia sang softly, and Ming, haunted but unbroken, began to remember a life lost to betrayal, and a destiny not yet fulfilled. Chapter 7. Echoes of the Twin Roots' dawn broke over the Sacred Plateau of Yuntai in hues of crimson and gold, but Duan Ming found no peace in the sunlight. The revelation that he might be Ji Wusheng, a name spoken with hatred and fear, haunted him like the cry of a ghost. Beside him, Lin Caixia tended to the fire in silence, sensing the weight on his heart. "Ji Wusheng," she murmured. "That name belongs to the boy who once led the Crimson Order until he betrayed them." Ming stared into the flame. "But I have no memories of that life. Only fragments. A tower. A fire. Chains." Caixia reached into her satchel and withdrew a scroll. Its seal cracked and faded. "Then perhaps the past has found you before you're ready. This scroll was given to me by my master, to be opened only in your presence." Ming unfurled it. The parchment trembled in his fingers as he read. The history of the Crimson Order, the experiment to create the 3 divided, 3 warriors of absolute power forged from the same soul, splintered by mystic rites. One was Ji Wusheng, the others were unknown. He looked up, the firelight dancing in his eyes. Then who are the others? And why did they divide us? Before Caixia could answer, a blinding light split the sky. The mountain trembled, and a figure descended in a storm of wind and embers. Cloaked in robes of black and gold, he landed before them with a grace that defied gravity. His face bore the same mark Ming carried, only inverted. "Brother," the man said, "it is time we reunited." Caixia rose, summoning her fan. "Who are you?" The stranger bowed slightly. "Liang Wuchen, the second of the divided. I was once your ally, Ming, until the order turned on us both." His eyes, full of sorrow, flicked to Caixia. "But I see you are not alone." Ming stepped forward. "If you're telling the truth, then help me remember, help me stop what's coming." Wuchen nodded. "The third of us, the most dangerous, was not lost. She was perfected, and now she leads the order from the shadows." "Who is she?" Ming demanded. Wuchen's voice dropped. "Your twin, Ji Yanmei." The name echoed across the mountains like a thunderclap. Caixia gasped. The Crimson Empress. Ming felt the weight of fate settle on him. "Then we end this, all of it." Wuchen extended his hand. "Then come, brother. Let us walk the path fate carved for us. Together." Chapter 8. The Shifting Tides of Destiny. The winds on the Sacred Plateau of Yuntai were no longer whispers. They were roars. A storm gathered in the distance, obscuring the heavens and threatening to descend. The world itself seemed to tremble as the line between past and present blurred in Duan Ming's mind. With each passing moment, memories he never knew he had flooded back in vivid flashes. A time when he was someone else, someone with another name. Ji Wusheng. The name rang like a bell in his mind. He could not place its origin, but the feeling was unmistakable. There was a life before Duan Ming, and it was now bleeding through the cracks of his identity. As the storm gathered, so too did his recollection of the bitter betrayals that had shaped his soul. He could see the faces of the people he had once known, family, comrades, enemies, all distorted by the passage of time. Standing beside him, Caixia noticed his change. Her eyes, ever perceptive, caught the flicker of turmoil in his gaze. She had known him only as Duan Ming, but now she sensed a deeper layer, a shadowy past pulling at the very core of who he was. "Duan Ming," she called softly, her voice carrying a tremor of concern. "Tell me, what are you remembering? What is it about Ji Wusheng?" He did not answer immediately. The wind seemed to stir the memories, urging him to remember everything. There were images of a tower burning, his family, his brothers, his sworn enemies, all lost in a battle that felt more like a massacre. He could see a figure, a shadow, pulling him into the flames, offering him power in exchange for his soul. That same figure now lurked in his thoughts. "Ji Wusheng," he whispered again. "That name, I betrayed them all. I made a pact. I gave my soul for a power I never understood. And now it haunts me." Caixia took his hand. "But you're not that person anymore. You are Duan Ming now. You have changed." But was it enough? Could one ever truly escape the chains of the past? Suddenly the ground beneath them trembled, and the air crackled with energy. From the darkening horizon figures emerged, cloaked in black robes, their eyes glowing with an eerie red light. The Crimson Order had returned, but this time, they were not alone. They had brought something else, something ancient, something powerful. The leader of the Crimson Order stepped forward, his eyes locking with Duan Ming's. A smile twisted his lips. "You thought you could escape, Ji Wusheng. You are mistaken. The seal you protect belongs to us." In that moment, Duan Ming realized the truth. His past had never truly let him go. The Crimson Order knew him for what he was. He had been one of them. Now they had come to claim what he had hidden away. As the battle began, Duan Ming and Caixia fought side by side, but the weight of his past pressed heavily on him. Every move he made felt like a dance with destiny, one he could never escape. His blade sang through the air, but each strike felt hollow. Was he fighting for the right cause? Was he fighting for redemption? Or was he simply repeating the mistakes of his past? The clash of swords rang through the air as the storm finally broke, the heavens themselves seeming to burn with the fury of their conflict. And as the winds howled, Duan Ming knew that his journey had only just begun. Chapter 9. The Price of Vows. The moon hung low over the Sacred Plateau, its silver light casting long shadows over the ruins of Yuntai. Duan Ming stood at the edge of the cliff, the wind biting at his skin, but his mind was far away, trapped in the fog of forgotten memories. Caixia's words echoed in his ears, but their meaning slipped through his grasp, like water through his fingers. You were someone else, before you became Duan Ming. The mark on his palm pulsed again, as though responding to a call long buried. It had been weeks since that battle with the Crimson Order, but the past continued to haunt him like an unshakable phantom. The name they had called him, Ji Wusheng, was a name that belonged to another life, another self. As he stood in the cold wind, a strange restlessness overtook him. The past was coming for him, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to face it. But if he was to learn the truth, there was only one place left to go: the Shrine of Forgotten Vows. The shrine was located on the highest peak of Yuntai beyond the ruins, and it was said that only those who carried a heart burdened by a deep vow could find it. Caixia had mentioned it in passing, a place where promises made in blood could be reclaimed or broken. Come, Duan Ming, Caixia's voice called to him softly from behind. We must go. It is time to face what haunts you. He turned to see her standing there, her eyes soft but knowing. Her presence had been a constant, a steady flame in the darkness of his journey. Yet, even she could not offer the answers he so desperately needed. She had her own secrets, her own past that she kept hidden beneath a smile. I am not sure I can do this, he admitted, his voice strained. The path before me is unclear and the memories are fragmented. What if I was never meant to remember? Caixia stepped forward and placed her hand on his shoulder, her grip firm and comforting. You must remember. The truth is the only way to free yourself from the chains of the past. If you do not confront what lies within, it will consume you. Ming closed his eyes, allowing her words to settle in his mind. She was right. The past had already started to shape his future. Whether he was ready or not, the truth would come, and with it, the choices that would define his fate. Together, they ascended the final peak, the air growing thinner as they neared the shrine. The wind howled, and the sound of distant drums seemed to echo from the deep crevices of the plateau. The shrine itself was a majestic structure, ancient stone pillars covered in vines and moss, its entrance guarded by two massive statues of forgotten gods. At the threshold, a figure stood waiting for them. An old man, bent and frail, his robes tattered with age. His eyes gleamed with a knowing light, and his presence seemed to command the winds to still. You seek answers, the old man said, his voice low and raspy. Ming nodded, stepping forward. I do. The old man's eyes studied him closely before he spoke again. What are you willing to sacrifice to reclaim the truth? Duan Ming hesitated. The weight of the question settled on him like a heavy stone. He had already sacrificed so much, his memories, his identity, his very sense of self. But to uncover the past, to find out who he had once been, could it truly be worth the cost? His hand instinctively moved to his chest, feeling the scar that ran deep within him, marking him as both a survivor and a prisoner of his own fate. I am willing to sacrifice anything, Ming said, his voice steady, though his heart trembled. The old man smiled, his lips curling into a knowing grin. Then the price will be paid. With a swift motion, the old man raised his hand, and the air around them seemed to shimmer. The wind died down, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. In an instant, the world around them seemed to warp as if time itself had been twisted and distorted. The stone pillars of the shrine cracked and split open, revealing hidden chambers within. From the darkness, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in black, with a sword strapped to his back. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his presence was both familiar and terrifying. "Ji Wusheng," the figure whispered, his voice like 1,000 broken whispers. "It is time to remember." Ming's heart raced. The figure before him was no stranger. He had seen this man in his dreams, in the flickering shadows of his forgotten past. He had been there, when the flames had consumed his clan, when his blood had been spilled, when his soul had been shattered. "You are not the man you think you are," the figure continued, stepping closer. "You were born into a legacy of blood and vengeance. The seal you seek is not for you, Ji Wusheng. It is for those who have the strength to wield it." Ming's mind reeled. The figure's words cut deep, but there was something in his heart that refused to believe them. "I am not him," Ming said, his voice shaking with the force of his conviction. "I am Duan Ming. I have chosen my own path." The figure's smile deepened, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You cannot escape what lies within you. The blood that flows through your veins will one day claim you." Before Ming could respond, the world around him erupted in a burst of light. The figure disappeared, leaving only a lingering sense of dread. The old man lowered his hand, and the air returned to its stillness. "You have faced the first trial," the old man said, his voice softer now. "But the true test awaits." Ming stood frozen, the weight of the words still pressing down on him. He was no longer sure what was real and what was illusion. All he knew was that the path before him was fraught with danger, and that the truth he sought would come at a price far greater than he had ever imagined. As he turned to Caixia, he saw the same uncertainty mirrored in her eyes. They had both come so far, but the journey was far from over. Whatever awaited them next, they would face it together. With a deep breath, Ming stepped forward into the unknown. Chapter 10. The Final Seal. The morning sky above the Sacred Plateau was painted in hues of red and gold, the first light of dawn casting long shadows across the ancient stones. Duan Ming stood at the entrance of the Shrine of Forgotten Vows, his eyes scanning the horizon. His heart was heavy with the weight of the past, but also filled with a sense of finality. This was the moment he had been preparing for, the culmination of his long journey. The answers he had sought for so long were now within his reach. Beside him stood Caixia, her hand gently resting on his arm. Her presence was a quiet anchor in the storm of his emotions, a calm that steadied his resolve. She too had come far, and the bond between them had grown deeper, even in the face of their trials. Yet, there was no denying the uncertainty that hung in the air. "Are you ready?" she asked softly, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. Ming nodded, but the truth was he was not sure. Ready? How could anyone be ready for what lay ahead? The past was a storm that had ravaged his soul, and the future was an uncharted path, one that could lead to redemption or ruin. "I have no choice but to face it," he said, his voice resolute. Together they stepped into the shrine, the stone pillars looming overhead like silent sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the heavy presence of something ancient and forgotten. At the heart of the shrine stood a massive altar, carved from black stone, its surface covered in intricate symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. It was here, at this altar, that the final trial awaited them. Ming approached the altar slowly, his breath shallow, the mark on his palm, the twisted roots that had once seemed like a curse, now pulsed with a rhythm that was all his own. It was as though the very essence of his being was calling to the altar, demanding the truth to be revealed. "Place your hand on the seal." The old man's voice echoed from the shadows. He had appeared once more, standing in the doorway, his figure a silhouette against the growing light. Ming stepped forward, his hand trembling as it hovered above the altar. The weight of his decision pressed down on him, the memories of a life long lost surfacing in fragments. He could feel the presence of the forgotten name, Ji Wusheng, like a phantom in the back of his mind. But beneath it, another name, His true name called to him, the name of the man he had become. With a deep breath, he placed his hand on the seal. The world shifted. A surge of energy coursed through his veins and the ground trembled beneath him. The altar cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber below, bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. From the depths of the chamber, a figure slowly rose, a shadowy form wrapped in flowing black robes. The figure's face was obscured, but the energy it emanated was suffocating, oppressive. "Ji Wusheng," the figure spoke, its voice a chilling whisper. "You have returned to claim what is yours." Ming's heart skipped a beat. The figure was no illusion. This was the source of the curse, the twisted force that had shaped his fate. This was the one who had bound him to the blood-soaked past. "Who are you?" Ming demanded, his voice unwavering. The figure stepped forward, its presence overwhelming. "I am the keeper of the seal, the one who bound your bloodline to the darkness. You were always destined for this moment." "No," Ming said, his voice rising with a new strength. "I am Duan Ming, not Ji Wusheng. I have chosen my own path, and I will not be defined by this curse." The keeper's eyes gleamed with malevolent light. "You cannot escape what is within you. The bloodline that runs through your veins will always call you back." Ming's palm began to glow with a silver light, the power of his own will igniting. The roots that had once bound him now began to unravel, their grip weakening with every breath he took. The keeper's form flickered, as though the very essence of his existence was being torn apart. "You are nothing but a shadow," Ming declared, his voice steady and resolute. "I will not let you control me." With a cry of defiance, Ming thrust his hand forward, releasing the power that had been dormant within him. The light from his palm exploded outward, engulfing the keeper's form. The dark figure writhed, its presence collapsing under the force of Ming's will. And then, with a final bone-shaking scream, the keeper vanished, leaving only an empty void where it had once stood. The room was still. For a moment, Ming stood frozen, his hand still glowing with the remnants of the power he had just unleashed. The mark on his palm pulsed once more, then faded into nothingness. The roots were gone. "It is done," Caixia whispered, her voice filled with awe. Ming slowly turned to face her, his expression unreadable. He had done it. He had faced the darkness within him and he had overcome it. But the price had been high. The journey was far from over. "Thank you," Ming said, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything." Caixia stepped forward, her eyes softening as she placed a hand on his cheek. "You've done more than you realize. You've freed yourself from the past, but the future is still ours to write." Ming nodded, feeling the weight of her words. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, he felt a sense of peace. The past no longer held him in its grasp, and with Caixia by his side, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the sun rose over the plateau, the two of them stood together facing the horizon. A new chapter had begun, and the world was theirs to shape. Epilogue. The dawn of new beginnings. The wind whispered softly across the sacred plateau, carrying with it the scent of blooming flowers and the distant hum of life returning to the land. Beneath the bright light of a rising sun, the land that had once been steeped in darkness was now bathed in warmth. A new era was beginning. Duan Ming stood at the edge of the plateau, his gaze fixed on the endless horizon that stretched out before him. The journey that had begun with uncertainty and pain had led him here, to a place where the weight of the past no longer pressed against his soul. The roots that had once bound him to a forgotten name were now nothing more than a distant memory, severed by the strength of his own will. Beside him, Caixia stood in quiet reflection. The bond between them had deepened with every trial, every battle fought side by side. Though their paths had been fraught with darkness and danger, they had emerged stronger, not just as warriors but as partners, both in arms and in spirit. The love that had quietly bloomed between them in the shadows of their struggles now stood as a silent testament to their resilience. "You did it," Caixia whispered, her voice filled with pride. Ming turned to her, his expression softening. "We did it," he corrected. "Together." The weight of their shared journey, their shared sacrifices, was heavy, but it was a burden they both carried willingly. And now, as the last remnants of the darkness faded into the distance, there was only the promise of new beginnings. In the years that followed, the Sacred Plateau became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to find their own path to redemption. The legend of Duan Ming and Lin Caixia, two souls bound by fate, who had defied the shadows of the past and fought for a future forged in the light, spread across the land. Their names were etched into the annals of history, not as warriors who sought power, but as champions of justice, guardians of the balance between light and darkness. Together they traveled far and wide, spreading the wisdom they had gained, helping those who were lost to find their way. And as the years passed, the stories of their deeds became legends passed down through generations, a reminder that even the deepest scars could be healed, and even the darkest paths could lead to the dawn of a new day. The winds of change continued to blow across the land, but the echoes of the past no longer held the power they once did. With each step they took, Duan Ming and Lin Caixia carved a new future, a future of hope, of love, and of endless possibilities. And as the sun set on the horizon, they knew that whatever the world might bring, they would face it together, side by side, for the journey was never truly over.